Hey guys, it's Chris, and this is going to be my Star Wars Rogue One teaser trailer breakdown, and hold on a second. Can't breathe in this thing. Okay, as I was saying, this is going to be my Star Wars Rogue One teaser trailer breakdown. I gotta say right off the bat, I'm a lot more excited about this movie than I was initially. I was always excited about a Star Wars movie every single year because it is Star Wars, it can't be that bad. Well, I guess it can. But the point being that I'm a lot more excited now than I was before. This movie looks like it's really good, and it is an integral part of our story because without getting these plans to Death Star 1.0, we'd have never had the original trilogy in the first place. Let's jump into a galaxy far, far away, my first love, Star Wars, and speculate on how they got these damn plans in the first place. So let's jump right in. Our first scene is our new protagonist, Jyn Erso. She is being played by Felicity Jones. I think she's going to be a badass, and it's already leading to speculation that she could be Rey's mother from Episode 7. I won't get into that here because there's just not enough evidence to know anything about that yet, and I don't think she's going to be Force sensitive anyway. So in these opening shots here, we have an officer reading off her Imperial arrest record, and this is what I'm digging about this. I'm liking how they're using these characters that are more gray and not so damn squeaky clean like you'd have in the original trilogy. For example, Luke from the original trilogy. I love Luke, he was a great main character, and obviously it ended up being one of the greatest sagas ever made, but at the same time, when he started off, he was so squeaky clean, he had never done anything wrong, well, other than sneaking off and shooting womp rats. See Mon Mothma here, and she's basically saying how Jyn Erso has been on her own since age 15, and how she's reckless, aggressive, and undisciplined. She comes back saying, well, this is a rebellion, ain't it? I'll rebel. Now these first few shots seem to take place on Yavin 4. This is the base they launched the original attack on the Death Star from. It looks very much like Yavin 4. You see here in some of these shots we see some G&K, or better known as Gonk power droids for you nerds out there. They're throwing us a few Easter eggs for us nerds in this movie, it looks like, so I'm really kind of digging that. Also in the hangar here you see the walls, very similar coloring to the outside of the base that we saw in Episode 4 when they launched the attack. And you see some vines here as well growing on the walls, and that is indicative of Yavin 4. It is a jungle style planet. And also keep in mind that this battle where they go to destroy the first Death Star in Episode 4 is called the Battle of Yavin. This is what sets up the Star Wars calendar. So anything after this battle is known as ABY, after the Battle of Yavin, and anything before this battle is known as BBY, before the Battle of Yavin. I talk a little bit more about that in my History of the Sith video, as well as my History of the Jedi videos, so go check those out as well. And I want to just throw this in here real quickly. I've already had some people asking for me to make this video, and they were talking about we're going to find out about the Bothans dying to get the plans to this Death Star. The Bothans were actually involved in Death Star 2.0, so that's not this part of the story. When Mon Mothma gave that speech in the original series about many Bothans died to bring us this information. So this is going to be the story about how they got the plans for the original Death Star that Princess Leia ended up with and stuck into R2-D2, which of course started off the main trilogy in the first place. And then we see some of our other characters, and this really seems to be a ragtag group of people thrown together who have the ability to get some shit done. Then we see some original stormtroopers, and these retro shots with the original armor and the original ships and all that makes me realize how much better I like this armor, better than I did the newer armor in Episode 7, The Force Awakens. So as we see these starter stories, it looks like what we're seeing here is the completion of Death Star 1.0, and we hear the voiceover about a weapons test, and they need to find out what the hell it is and how the hell to destroy it. And of course we know the ultimate test was performed on Alderaan when Princess Leia was being held by Grand Moff Tarkin and Vader in Episode 4. And then we see a Grand Admiral for the first time in the movies. He is wearing this white uniform with a cape, and for those that don't know, a Grand Admiral is a rank in the Imperial Navy, the highest rank you can possibly achieve, and they are appointed by the Emperor himself. A Grand Admiral is actually above Grand Moff, like Grand Moff Tarkin. Moffs are essentially regional governors, where Grand Admirals control everything as far as the Imperial fleet. They report directly to Emperor Palpatine himself, and originally in the expanded universe there were 12 Grand Admirals called the Circle of 12. The most famous was a guy named Thrawn, who was appointed Grand Admiral after another Grand Admiral tried to make a power play on the Emperor himself, and he was replaced by Thrawn. Thrawn is from the Heir to the Empire series, a book series that came out after Return of the Jedi that no longer counts. Also, Thrawn originally was a Biss, which is a blue-skinned humanoid species, so I'm guessing here this is a brand new character because this guy looks like fucking Magneto from the X-Men. And then we have some shots of potentially Tatooine here, or another desert-style planet. I don't think it's Jakku by any means, and the reason I'm saying it's one of these desert-style planets more than likely is because we see several shots of moisture vaporators. Now this, of course, is the kind of farming that Uncle Owen did in the original trilogy, where they gather their own water to sell to others and to use for crops. And in another scene here, we see Jawas, and we know Jawas are on Tatooine, so I'm assuming here they'll probably want to go back to some original planets, but I would guess here, just based off this footage, this probably is Tatooine. And then we see a shot here of Forrest Whitaker's character, and he looks to be like he's in the Mad Max movies. And then we have a shot of Shadow Troopers, and they're really throwing in some Easter eggs for the hardcore Star Wars nerds. These are elite stormtroopers with black armor, and they actually have cloaking devices. I don't know if they'll do that in the movie, we'll certainly see, but these are Shadow Troopers, the most elite of stormtroopers. There are several kinds of stormtroopers, actually a lot more than people think. And there's actually another type they're showing in a clip here in just a minute I'll talk about. And next we have a scene of our ragtag group running when an alarm's going off. Perhaps they already have the plans, something in her hand here. Perhaps these are the plans that end up in Princess Leia's hands that she transfers to something a hell of a lot smaller that she can stick into R2-D2. And speaking of stormtroopers, we have other stormtroopers running the other direction here, and this is probably on the Death Star. And if you look here, this is what I was talking about. There's another type of stormtrooper here, and it looks to be a jungle trooper. They're actually called wetland assault troopers. They're basically stormtroopers that have armor that's slightly different. It's camouflage, and they're trained to survive and operate in jungle or wetland style climates or planets. So this may indicate some of the different environments we're going to see in this movie. And then we have a blind Donnie Yen here. I'm not sure who his character is yet, but it looks to be there's a downed X-Wing in the background, and he has a staff here. Perhaps they're going to pull in some more expanded universe stuff and make him a Terakasi master. Terakasi is basically a martial art in the Star Wars universe, and I think a lot of people would know this martial art the best by the Star Wars Galaxy game that came out in 2005, which is the best MMO in fucking history, by the way. Then we see some more shots of Shadow Troopers shooting something, and then we immediately cut over to what looks to be two Imperial transports being blown to shit. This is probably sabotage of some sort from our ragtag group here, but the editing makes it look like the Shadow Troopers are shooting those ships. These are in fact likely earlier models of Imperial transports like the Emperor and Darth Vader rode in. Then we have our Grand Admiral Magneto walking across some water here, dragging his cape. He don't give a damn. I'm not sure where this battle is, but I think it's the same one we'll talk about in just a second with the new AT-ATs we see. And then we have a shot here of what looks to be some kind of Sith or perhaps an Inquisitor. We have a character here going into a room. He is bowing. I thought at first he was walking down some stairs. He is kneeling to somebody, and there are two Royal Imperial Guard members standing here in front of what looks to be a Bacta tank. Now, of course, a Bacta tank is one of those tanks that they submerge people in to heal. Luke actually had to get into one in the original trilogy, if you remember. This cannot be Darth Vader. He's already in his armor, and he doesn't walk around in any kind of cloak. And this can't be the Emperor either, because the Emperor is already walking slower and kind of hunched over. And this looks to be a young buck walking with a little bit of pep in his step and kneeling to his master. I'm thinking here that this may be somebody reporting to Darth Vader. If this is in fact some kind of healing chamber, maybe Vader can get out of his armor temporarily, like we saw him come out of his helmet in Empire Strikes Back in a special chamber. So perhaps this is an Inquisitor, and they're starting to tie into Star Wars Rebels a little bit as far as these Inquisitor storylines that were basically Sith assassins used by Darth Vader and the Emperor to hunt down the remaining Jedi. And then again we have a shot of Forrest Whitaker in the Mad Max movie. And then we have a badass shot here of these proto AT-ATs or all-terrain assault transports, or perhaps just a earlier version of the AT-ATs. And you can tell these are kind of prototype versions or earlier versions because they have the rounded things on their heads, very similar to what we see in Star Wars Rebels. But it's really cool here to see them in a different environment. We see the palm trees here in the beach type setting, so it looks to be like they're fighting in Florida. The next scene is not Boba Fett. He would have been a bounty hunter for a long time by this point. And during these last few shots we hear the Forrest Whitaker character saying, "What if they catch you? What if you keep fighting? What will you become?" And then we see the last shot of Jyn Erso, our main character, and she looks to be in TIE fighter style armor, but she looks like she has two batons on her back. The way the scene's cut up, it looks to be like she may be going turncloak and joining the Empire here, but I think this is probably just her escape plan or part of her infiltration of the Empire on the Death Star. We know how this ends up. We know that the Rebels get these plans as far as Princess Leia, and she sticks them into R2-D2, which kicks off our main trilogy in the first place. So I think here's just the way it's edited, but it looks pretty badass, and she looks to be a pretty badass character. So anyway guys, that's basically it for the trailer. There's lots of cool shots in here and lots of things that made me a lot more excited about it than I originally anticipated I would be about the movie. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you excited about it? How does this compare for you to Episode 7? Of course, you're not really as excited because it's not like a main saga movie, but these stories are really, really important if you want to fill in all these gaps that the books used to do that now are considered legends, no longer canon, that used to be expanded universe. Thanks again so much, you guys. Be sure to subscribe to get everything. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. can't breathe in this thing.